Say It Skillfully is about being who you really are and saying what you think needs to be said, even at work. Whether you're part of a small project team or leading a giant company, the more you accept that you're part of the problem, the faster you can be part of the solution. Join Molly Chang today as together we break the silence and learn how to be happier, healthier, and more productive at work and in life.
Hello, Molly here. Welcome to Say It Skillfully, helping you find the words to create shared reality in a way that's true to yourself. Today, we're getting a glimpse of high finance, as my guest today founded a firm in 2016 called Moonfair, with a vision to democratize private investing. And they've been a disruptor in the world of private equity. Born and raised in Germany, his start in business was with the Boston Consulting Group, before going on to found and lead his first financial services company, First 5 AG. He then joined Kohlberg, Kravis, and Roberts, also known as KKR, and worked his way up to managing director and the head of all of Germany. I'm excited to welcome to the show founder, chairman, and CEO of Moonfair, Steffen Pauls. Steffen, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Molly, and thanks really for having me in your podcast. I'm very excited to be here, though I must say that being a German native, I'm not sure whether I am really the best guest for a show or podcast labeled Say It Skillfully, but I will do my best.
You're doing great, and there's no pressure at all, Steffen. I have to say, I have not yet been to Berlin, and it is very high on my list. My grandfather actually left China for a bit and went to university there, which is why I have the TSCH in my name. So most of our listeners have not been immersed in finance or private equity. So today is a really great learning opportunity. Before we go there, I appreciate you taking some time to share your personal journey, growing up, early family, going to school. What were some of the defining moments and struggles that helped shape who you are and why you do what you do?
Yeah, look, Molly, more than happy to. I grew up in a typical, you would call it middle class, maybe upper middle class family here based in Germany, born in Hamburg, which is the northern part. And then we moved early to the middle of Germany. And this is really where I went to school. I'm like the sandwich child. So I have two brothers. One is older and the other one is younger, was a little bit, our little one. We called him Boy. His name is still Boy. And, my father was a lawyer. Very much into academics. So he took a PhD as well. My mom studied history, but then devoted really her time and her life to us, to running the household and to being a good wife and an even better mother. And she was really, like the center of our family. Be there, be responsive, taking care. And my father is very classic, I know, for today's world, very conservative. He was basically, earning the money. A man, and he's still alive, and we are still in great contact, highly disciplined from the very beginning, very much into sports. He was in his age at 40, running and winning the German championship over 5 kilometers. So a super well-disciplined, sports-oriented guy. And this is exactly what he expected in the early days already from his sons. So a very classical, male-driven approach towards education. And, it started out at the age of 6 or so. He came and I was sitting down with him and I had to, he wanted me to learn what a P&L is and the balance sheet. So I started pretty early with economics and related stuff. We spent a lot of time together, playing cards, the usual stuff you do, very much oriented about content. It was always about content, about history, about politics, endless discussions. It was not like the family where you played Monopoly or whatever, and cards. It was more about really discussing things, exchanging views on the world, on religion, reading newspaper, reading books together, spending a lot of time on, I would call it more the intellectual side of things. I can hardly recall that we, at any time watched movie together. It was, a small home, but a cozy home. but quite demanding in terms of what he expected. He told us already at the age of 8 then, that his absolute must bar, so to say, would be that we not only go to university, that was a given in his mind, but would also take our PhDs. So a very, shaping the ground for a high aspiration. And as it turned out later, and I guess that's for many of people in the audience an issue, either with the female side or male side or whatever side, in their parents, if the aspirational or the level or the bar is high, there are basically two things how you can cope with it. You can, undergo and say, I give up, because that's not me and I don't want to do it, and you find your way, or you try to keep up with the aspirations, and I'm in the latter camp. Look, my role in the family, Molly, and that is a privilege in a way if you're a sandwich child. Yeah? I found, most probably of expectations went into the direction of my older brother. That's probably why he studied law. I didn't study law. I studied physics and business economics. And then, I found my niche. And this is something that, probably is an advice for people that are in the same situation. Yeah, find a niche which is not yet occupied by someone you admire, of course, and you want to fulfill his or her expectations. Find your niche, which is a little bit outside of the scope. And what I did is I started playing piano at the age of 7. Yeah, and piano and music, which is more, the fine arts, is not entirely in the sweet spot and in the laser focus of my dad. So he liked it, he admired it. I became then quite, advanced in it. And when I say playing piano, I'm not talking about, the usual half an hour or whatever many children do. I was playing basically 6-7 hours a day post school. So spent my youth in a pretty isolated world. I liked it. It was really a passion. And I succeeded there. And then at the age of 15 or 16, I decided for myself that I wanted to become a professional piano player. And this is really where I devoted my time. So no party, a few friends more from the music scene. I had my niche. My parents were, I would say, proud. Of course, I had to play when they had guests, and when people, saw that I would approach a quite decent level there, and I wanted to turn it into a profession. But then again, and that's a private talk here, so it's a private experience in a way. My father came and he put on my night table, articles about piano players, that had never made a living, and had really to struggle to nurture their families. And the unfair thing in the classical professional piano world, if you are not top 10, people don't show up to your concerts. In the past, they wouldn't buy your CD, they wouldn't download your piano piece. If you think about if you can get a music piece from the best player in the world, why would you go to maybe to the second best to compare and third best? But you're not going down to number 100. Now think about other professions: lawyer, KKR, private equity, a doctor. You can be number 1,000 in your town, and you are still, make a decent living. That's very different. So in retrospective, I am very grateful for this guidance, and I kept it as a hobby.
Well, so let me ask about this and dive into it, because as a parent, you see this amazing passion that you don't want to squash, and amazing talent, I'm sure. When he came to you, did you feel an openness, like he was just letting you know, or did you feel pressure? Wait a second, maybe I'm making the wrong choice.
Molly, you should meet my father. He's you can have great discussions, but he is a very typical, in a very direct way, what you all would expect from people from Germany, very direct. So it was not a subtle think it over thing, as you would do it probably today. No, it was not directive either. Yeah, but he was really clearly saying, think about it.
Yeah. So I played the violin for 11 years and was never at the highest level, but played in a way that was It was fun. For me, I remember my senior year playing 3 or 4 hours after school each day. And I thought just for young people, it was a great outlet. High school cannot be sometimes the easiest place. So the music was a great way to be in, I think, good relationship with me. So it gave me a creative outlet. It gave me a space to be me. And, I think to your point, you kind of define a niche, that perhaps not everybody else is doing. So there can be some confidence built in
Yeah,
sense
plus,
of,
I would add, I'm totally with you, Molly. If you think about it, and you can't push your children into it unless they do it inherently motivated. That there, I'm convinced. But if you think about it, whether it's violin or piano or something else, it's it's a matter of discipline. Yeah, so focus. You do something in some cases, as in my case, for hours and hours and hours. The second point is it's an incredible brain, exercise to learn pieces, for 30 minutes, 45 minutes by heart. And it requires a lot of, emotional processing and openness also when you play. In particular in public, because when you're a great musician, this is not about technique, it's about the combination of technical skills and emotional depth and content in the music that you want to convey over to your audience. And all these aspects are, when they are great isolated, but they are also incredibly helpful when it comes later, when you do other stuff, and in particular in your profession. So for me, without this very intense time that has also, by the way, it flip sides and downsides, I probably wouldn't be the human being I am today.
yeah, I can totally see that. I love how you called out the emotional processing, the brain exercise part of it. I am curious, do you have a favorite piano concerto that you played?
Oh, there are a few. And to be honest, it changed, and there are some, there's some involvement and development. It used to be a long time Maurice Ravel, the French expressionist, incredible music for me for many reasons. But I went back then, and this is really boring, to one of the probably most important people or human beings in music history, which is Ludwig van Beethoven.
Yeah, I would have had to guess. I would have had to guess. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Did sport make its way? Because I think about three boys. I think of sport, but was there time for that, or did you?
No, it was part of the equation, of course. So my father is a runner. I was running as well. I was not doing it, call it intensely, but an hour a day or so. So I was a decent runner. I was also in a team, but never, exceeded any high level there. But it remained one of my absolute favorite hobbies. And today it's mountain biking and running and everything, that is outdoor sports.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Can you tell us when you go to university in America? I think my sense is that it's a little bit more egalitarian. I understand in parts of Europe, there's not as many who actually go to university. There's a bit of a cutoff. So do you mind just helping listeners appreciate how that works and your own, how do you determine where exactly you wanted to go to university?
No, of course, more than happy to. Look, the big difference between the US and Germany, and don't get me wrong, they are fantastic public schools, but it's also very much privately dominated. Yeah, when you think about the Ivy League schools, and there are dozens of private schools. Germany, as a consequence of its history, has a very, very decent public school and public university system. So after I took the decision not to pursue my career as a professional piano player, I wanted to study medicine, and then I joined a public university. But it happened a little bit the same, what I experienced, with my thinking around the professional music career. I didn't want to become a medical doctor. That was more, hobby, interest, medicine, physics, math driven, rather than a smart professional decision. So I changed horses. And then, I entered into one of the best public schools for business and business economics in Germany, in Mannheim. That's a small city not far away from Frankfurt, some people might be more familiar with. And then I met my girlfriend there, and she was half Mexican, half German. And she had spent quite a while, and her father studied at Harvard University. And she said, look, put your toe into the lake, the water, and why don't you go for the summer school to Harvard? So she had me applying, and I applied. My English was absolutely really non-existent. I was more in the French camp. I could hardly say, I don't know, how are you? But somehow I managed to get in. These days, by the way, it was far more less difficult than today. But then I had another challenge when I started, the courses. I took business economics and money banking and finance, one course from the business school and one from the economics department. I didn't understand a word, no word. And the system is very different because, as you know, in US, universities, you're being called out. Yeah, there's a dialogue with your professor. In Germany, it's a one-way dialogue. The guy talks, and people are listening. So what I did in order to cope with the situation, I got the textbook. That was really, that was my safety harbor. I got the textbook, and it was very much leaning towards what the professor was telling us. And then I translated it. And in these days, there was no Google Translate. So I had a dictionary, a paper book dictionary, and I was translating the two textbooks word for word in German. And then I got an A+. And in both midterm exams. And then the dean of the university called me in of the summer program, which was another problem because I was able, to understand what's in the textbook, but not able to have a conversational discussion with someone. He called me in. And luckily, this guy was, from originally from Germany, lived in the US, and he started the conversation in German. So that was a big, big win. And then they asked me whether I want to stay. And this is what I did. And then it ended up that I wrote my master thesis with Harvard and got a scholarship and stayed there roughly for 1.5 years. I went then back to Germany and finished my university in Mannheim. And then I did also a degree in France.
My gosh, I am blown away, Steffen, at the work ethic. I mean, textbooks are boring to translate it word for word. And so that's amazing. And to, just emotionally, if you're going into, a leader's office and you're thinking, I can't really communicate in this language very well. I mean, was that super stressful? Were you just like, this is just what it's going to be? I'm really wondering how you handled that pressure.
Yeah, look, I was excited. And the way it worked, I had a friend in these days, it was the brother of my girlfriend back in these days, and he was with the University of Chicago. So he came over, he was obviously fluent in English. By the way, he explained me first the letter from the dean because I was not able to read it. And he gave me a little bit of coaching. Yeah, in conversational English. And I felt at least, I can survive the first 4 or 5, minutes or so of that conversation. But then, frankly, when I entered, it was a corridor, and the dean had, I think, 3 or 4 assistants. So the first room there was one assistant. I coped to say hello. Second one was another one. Third one was the third one. And then after passing through 3 assistants and then in these large hallways in Harvard, I got a little nervous. But the pressure came pretty late. And then, as I said, I was relieved. And Molly, to your point, this was the moment where of course, my extremely close relationship to the US started. Yeah, I am extremely grateful because they supported me. I got my own house from a professor who took a sabbatical for a year because I couldn't pay the housing. My father would not have been able to pay. He would have been willing to pay for everything, but not able. So I told them I can't pay for it. And they said, look, we manage. You get a scholarship, you get the housing, you get all the support. extremely grateful, picking a German guy out of summer school, and then, opening up the opportunity to write his thesis there. That was quite amazing. And, staying in the office, I will never forget this.
I love it. I'm proud of America too. Thank goodness that they did that. That's awesome. So you go back to Germany, and I guess when you're leaving such a life-changing experience in your mind, were you thinking, I want to work in America at some point, or were you really thinking, I'm going to call Germany home and stay here?
No, it was, look, for me, always a dream to go for an international career. And I never, frankly, considered to work for or with a German-focused company anymore. Yeah? This is later, and we might talk about it, when I joined BCG, pretty international firm, and then of course KKR, which is a US-centric and founded in America, in the US, company followed. So it was very clear that I would go for an international, at least, company. But having said that, I started out and ended up, working out of Germany in my early days.
So take us through how you have this great launch pad and just the career choices. I don't think BCG is the easiest place to get into either. So talk to us about your decisions and path.
Yeah, look, that's something that determined my first, I would say, 24 years or so of my life. I told you about the piano. That brings a lot of discipline. Then, I did medicine, but I didn't finish. So the pressure was up, and the jury was out for my final, business administration and physics major at the university back there in Germany. So I really literally was working a lot at university. Yeah, not like 80 hours a week, but started at 10. I'm more a late morning guy, and then ended at 9, and 5-6 days a week, and also during the off times. I ended my degrees as the fastest who has ever done an exam or a degree at that university, and the second best in my peer group. So the door was open to quite a few opportunities, and there were two things I was in particular interested in. One was consulting, and the other one was banking, iBanking, and these were very much on vogue in these days. And I decided for consulting because I never saw myself to be a consultant for my entire life. The reason why I wanted to go to BCG, and I interviewed with a couple of others, was I wanted really to learn to think analytically about problem solving. I wanted to develop my conceptual skills, strategic thinking, and this in a hard-working, fairly skilled environment. And this is at the end how I decided to go to BCG. But I had everything but a great start. I didn't catch in the first 3 months really what they wanted me to do. I was quite self-confident, they told me, but I figured out, and then I stayed for some 6 years there. It's an incredible firm, an incredible culture. What was much smaller, of course, than it is today. But I can still say, a fantastic place to start your career.
I'm curious because I can tell you had this confidence. They told you. Do you recall? And this is along the relationship dimension versus the task dimension of our work. Obviously, you've got these skills you're learning. I'm just wondering, any funny stories or ahas about people helping you manage perhaps how you show up at work or with clients?
No, it was, funny. It was less so on the, call it, relationship side of things. There was one really, funny story where we were, and that these consultants are being highly paid, per FTE by the companies. Yeah, it's quite a fee, so you can expect a lot. And I had my first presentation where I was presenting in front of the C-level of a larger company that is now a DAX 30 company here in our stock index. And, I was basically stating the obvious. But I did so with so much self-confidence that no one realized. I was basically telling textbook stuff from university, but not, consulting insights that you would expect from someone. And then I got a kind feedback, and they said it directly. Look, you were stating pretty much the obvious, but the client bought into it, so everything is fine. But next time you do better. And then another one, I was sitting with a more experienced, older colleague of mine, and you might know this. You're writing your charts from left to right. I was used to write it, as you would write a letter. So my first presentation was in a very different format, and everyone was laughing.
That's great. Yeah, I remember in my consulting days, I once was with a partner, and you're supposed to present a bound book. And I just somehow missed the lesson of like, well, we have this machine, you bind it in a book. Why do I have these loose pieces? I was like, oh, note to self, use the binding machine. That's spectacular. So what prompted the move into high finance?
Yeah, look, first, I said I loved BCG, but I was there really to learn, this conceptual analytical stuff. And being a consultant is great. Don't get me wrong, but I was a bit frustrated that I was not sitting in the driver's seat and really taking the decisions and to implement the stuff that we advised on. So I left BCG with no plan whatsoever and came up with the idea of my first company, which was you would call it fintech company today. But I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. That was in the late 90s. And I did it. And, in retrospective, the company is it's market leading in Germany, Austria, Switzerland. So it's not a global company, but it was one of the, most important steps in my life, because there I started really to, frankly, understand what it means building something and working in a real work environment where you have responsibility, where you have, a large team, where you need to communicate broadly, where it's not about the most intellectual thing, it's more about getting things done. And this was extremely important for me, with all ups and downs, by the way. We had a horrible time, as many others, with 9/11. I had to lay off more than half of my team. It hurted. It didn't come natural. It doesn't come natural, by the way, even today to me. It's not what you like, but I learned, how to do it, and got better into it. And then, equally important, before I started this company, I met, my wife, and, we decided to marry, and she moved over to Frankfurt, where I had the company, and she joined my company. So we were literally working in these days, being an entrepreneur, 80 hours a week, every day, day and night, weekends, of course, talking the entire time of the company. About the company. That was, something that, created really an incredible team spirit between the two of us that we are still benefiting today, 20 years later from.
So this is worth unpacking. I did not realize this. Working with family, much less your wife, and, preserving the whole of the relationship, with the personal side is not easy. And was it ever really at wit's end? You're like, this is going to be really challenging. I'm just wondering how you didn't let some of those stresses and hard times tear you apart at a personal level.
No, Molly, no, absolutely. Of course, yeah, because you're living and thinking in the world of your company, and everything that is related to the success or failures or non-success of the company hits in a way indirectly, immediately also your relationship, because you're both giving your heart, time, and energy into this. One mistake I made, and maybe it would be different today, as I was like the founder and CEO of this company. I was also, my wife was a direct report to me. Yeah? She was running legal and some financial stuff, and that created, to be honest, some tensions. Yeah, and by the way, also from a governance perspective in today's world is a little bit questionable. But we changed this pretty early after a couple of months, and she was reporting to a partner of mine and was working closer in a different department. And that worked well, but still we had the pressure, of the ups and downs that has an impact on your relationship. And that was a time for 3 years. I probably, would say for 10 years, would not have been the best decision, at least for us, to build our relationship out and also build a family.
Yeah, no, for 3 years, I can see if you can kind of, it's a little bit of a sprint for that period of time. You could hang on to it. So how was it when you had your son and just balancing being a father and doing because you're so dedicated to doing great work?
Yeah, look, that was, of course, for us a lifetime changing event. We really, it was always our dream to have a family with children. And we are both, she has 2 sisters, so a family of 3, the same with us. And it was not outspoken. There were no plans, but we were really, we really wanted to get children. And honest story, it didn't work out the way we thought in the beginning. It's not, and this is a learning for me, a private learning. It's not that if you decide, oh, I want to have children, next month you're pregnant. This is very different, in particular if you work hard and travel a lot. So it took us a while, and then we lost our first child in the very beginning, and that was hard emotionally, of course. And then when we got my son Benjamin, which was 1 year later, it was just when I had started at KKR. So often things come together at the same time. New job, we moved to London, so a new city, a new life. And then Anya got pregnant, and clearly, his birth as well as the birth of my other 3 children, my daughters, they clearly belong to the greatest, absolutely life-changing moments I've ever had. It was not easy because I started at KKR. KKR is a great company, family-friendly, but of course they expect a lot. And when I started there, it was not the KKR that people might know from today with 2,000 people and 30 offices or so. It was a group of 30, 40 people, very, very small, totally transparent what everyone was doing, very entrepreneurial, people that want to develop something, and of course, high demand in terms of travel, work hours, and so on. So it turned out then one of the misses, I spent, of course, time with my son in the beginning and then with the children, but definitely not the time I would have loved to spend.
Yeah, well, kudos to your wife because 4 kids, that's a lot.
It is. She's fantastic in it, but she accepted it. It was sort of, it was a deal that she, could live with, but frankly, not at the cost. But for me, it meant, it was job and it was family, and that's it, and not, much time for myself. So I really tried to make up for being, not present, as I would have loved to. But that was the compromise. And I often ask her, retrospective, is it a miss that you feel? And she says no.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I think it's a choice. And as long as the parents as partners are teamed up and both agree to how we're going to play the game, you can make it work. And I think that that's a real tribute. Like you said, there are definitely some trade-offs, right? Would have been nice to be home more, and you had a chance to, create great value business-wise. And, we've talked about it, you have a great relationship with your family. So that's that's the real joy there, which is amazing. So this, I can only imagine KKR. I am curious as the company grew, because you were there quite some time, Steffen. So just talk about the growth of, just a very hard charging group, and how the culture may have shifted, and perhaps how you grew as a leader. Love to hear a little bit about
that. Yeah, look, it was a boutique when I joined. It was in 2004, and in these days, KKR had offices in New York, which was the headquarter in Menlo Park, and they just had opened up the London office. So a small team of very, very bright people, really fun to work with, incredibly entrepreneurial. So just develop the market, go out, meet people, large degrees of freedom. And, it was really a culture that intrigued me. Yeah? And I can talk more about it, but it was, of course, totally performance oriented, but at the same time, really a sort of family feeling. And the founders were also referring to the family. And I can tell you a story. I started, lowest end of the career ladder as an associate or something, or principal or so, at the age of 35. And I had no money, by the way. I started all my money from BCG, went into my previous venture. So we started literally with 50K debt that I borrowed from a friend of mine. So I was under pressure. And then I had the first child, as I told you. So I met the first time, after the recruiting process, Henry Kravis in New York. Yeah, and as I said, the firm was small, and of course, I had read at the business school, Barbarians at the Gate. He is legendary, and I knew about him and what he has built. And he's an incredibly impressive guy, And he came to me, looking into my eyes with an incredible presence, and said, "Welcome, Steffen. Without you, KKR would not be what it is today." That was his first sentence. So I felt like, in heaven. And that describes a little bit how he is running the firm, and George as well, giving really people a feeling of individual importance. And that is something that, I have not seen anymore in any other firm, and probably something that is there because KKR was a founder-led company who have shaped the culture, a very unique culture in a very, very unique way. I tell you another story about KKR because it intrigued me, and it helped me shaping now the culture at Moonfair. Back there, I think it was 2006 or so, or 7. There was like similar to COVID. There was a SARS flu, and everyone wanted to get a medicine that was called Tamiflu, and no one got it in London. Everyone tried, and the pharmacies were sold out, and we were a bit desperate and frankly, fearing the worst. And we had at that point of time 2 children. And then suddenly, without any announcement, there was a package, delivered by the postal guy at our door. And we found, a package of medicine for everyone, for the children, the right doses, for the adults, even for our nanny. And a handwritten card signed by Henry Kravis, "We care for you." No announcement, never talked about it, but that's the culture at KKR. It's, of course, highly demanding, performance-driven like hell, but also caring when it comes to the essence of life. And this is something, by the way, I will not forget. This is why I'm grateful to KKR. And this is something that I took with me also, and try to give my best and apply at Moonfair today.
Wow, that is extraordinary. Thank you for sharing that, and a shout out to Henry for that level of just putting people first, which I think folks may not be the first thing they think of. And wow, I'm moved. I'm really moved by that. So if you're having such a dream there, and you worked your way to the head of all of Germany, so I imagine you have a lot of leeway. You're master of your universe. So what compelled you to make a shift?
You mean now in the shift away from KKR?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the firm, what intrigued me in the beginning, and I'm, as I said earlier, a very entrepreneurial guy. Yeah, so I loved the freedom. I loved the framework in which I could operate, which was already international, as I said. Being entrepreneurial, also shaping the place, developing the team, growing the company, and really be part of an industry with an incredible amount of talent, learn from them. And I love KKR and still love it. The firm, has grown tremendously. And I've been with the firm for 11 years. I saw a lot, had a great, made friendships, great mentors. But, at the age of, in my early 40s, I said to myself, I want to go back to do something entrepreneurial. I don't want to end my life, my professional life, with a firm, frankly, that I haven't built. It is Henry and George's firm. They always gave us the feeling it's our firm. But I wanted to build something, to do something innovative. And frankly, I needed a new challenge to some extent. So I left KKR in 2015 and was really thinking about what's next. And this is how I came up with Moonfair.
So tell us about Moonfair. I hope listeners are just, you have to do what you have to do. So I'm really proud of you for knowing what you needed and wanted to create. And lots of people can think about it, but Steffen, you did it.
Yeah, look, that's very, very, very kind. But I didn't know that I would, or we would get to where we are when I started. It was literally Molly in the year of 2015, and I was sitting in a Starbucks in London and was thinking about what I felt, how unfair it is that, call it, ordinary individuals are not able to invest into private equity. Private equity, for the audience, many people will know, but private equity is from a return perspective and risk return perspective a close to unbeatable asset class. Since inception, stating a number, KKR has made 23% return on their investments. So unbelievable. And I had invested alongside KKR with smaller amounts of money that's expected from the firm, and it's a great opportunity. And I wanted to continue to do so. But I figured out there is close to no offering. If you want to invest with KKR, you need 10 million US dollar, absolutely not my pocket size. And the offering that was out there from other banks and other people was just not compelling for me. So I said to myself, there must be more people that feel the same way, that should be part of what became, by the way, an unprecedented value creation that's happened in private markets over the past decade. So I wanted to benefit from it. And I felt alone and not strong enough in a way as an individual to get access. And this was really the hour of birth at the Starbucks in London, where I thought about, if you can't do it on your own, you must join forces with others. So you build a community. And if you do so, you do it in the way the 21st century works, which is digital. So I reached out to friends, asked them, can you put also a little bit, money into the pot, and we make it as a group. My lawyers then stopped me and said, this is not how it works. It's a regulated market. You can't go around and raise money. And I decided I do it professionally. And that was really when I came up with the idea of Moonfair. And look what all, in retro perspective, frankly, I said that I didn't know that at that point of time. But if you think about what all great companies have in common, and this is an advice, if someone comes to me and says, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do X, Y, Z, it all starts with that you have to see something, the founder or the entrepreneur, you have to see something that others don't. I'm not saying I saw that this phenomenon, this private markets go retail or private equity becomes accessible to the broader public, which we are spearheading, that this would become a global financial phenomenon. But I saw something that there is a need, and all great ideas start with a need. Probably the famous quote from this philosopher and macroeconomist Joseph Schumpeter from Austria. He said, as early as in the beginning of the last century, he said, all economic development builds on the process of creative destruction. And the creative destruction, the force behind it, that's the entrepreneur. And this is exactly what happened with Moonfair. There was an idea, a quite groundbreaking idea, retrospectively. I didn't know that this would become such a big movement. And I was lucky to have it.
I love it. So just tell us for the layman in detail, how was building it and how does it work for people, just so they have a little bit of insight, and we can give them a website to go to check it out.
Look, the challenging, you often talk about challenges, and these stories, when I would write a book, they might sound differently and easy. Building a company is everything but easy. In the beginning, despite the fact that I had quite a good career track record with BCG and being an entrepreneur and KKR and so on, it's just you. Yeah, it starts with one person. And as I said, I was sitting there alone. And the funny thing is, for quite some time, I stayed alone, because most people said to me, look, this is one very serious guy from the banking industry said to me, literally, that is the most stupid business idea I've ever heard, Moonfair. Yeah, to offer access or the ability to invest directly, it's starting in your country at 75K, it's still a lot, but it's not 10 million, into a private equity fund like KKR or Blackstone or Carlyle or so. This is never going to work digitally. Who on earth, he said, will invest and will come to your platform? And he said, I don't give you a cent. I would never bet on you. And many other people, most 95% of all my friends said, you should go back to KKR. You have 4 children. You have a responsibility. This is who has done it before, was the first question. Why is it not out there? Why is it not in the US, the most advanced and entrepreneurial and innovative country on earth? Why do you think that you can do it? So not many people were buying into it, but one of the big learnings, and that I had taken with me from my time at KKR, when you have a belief, when you really believe in something, yeah, even if there's headwind, you should stick to it. You should listen to arguments, but if you're still convinced, yeah, cope with the headwind and go with it. So I started, with the idea to incubate it, moved on. And then it took me a year or 1.5 years to find the first guy who was willing to join. And then another year to build a team. And many obstacles on the way, that we were facing, stating a very simple one. We needed, at least for our first private equity fund, in which then, the investors behind Moonfair that signed up to the platform invested, we needed a minimum of 10 million. But, you need first an offering. Yeah, you need to offer someone a private equity fund and ask them, do you want to invest with 100K or not? And I needed someone who would give me what the industry calls an allocation, so some space in their fund. So I had a very good, and I have still a very good friend. He's co-running EQT, which is a Nordic private equity fund. He lives also in Munich. So I went to him and I asked him, hey, Markus, can I get 10 million, please, allocation or space in your EQT fund? And he was looking to me and was saying, for what? And I told him about Moonfair, that I wanted to slice it down, in smaller tranches and then offer it to people that want to invest. And he said, but where are your customers? And I said, look, I don't have any customers. I first need the fund. You have a classical chicken egg problem. And it ended, the way it must end, that it was a handshake deal. And he said, okay, Steffen, you get the 10 million. But if you don't get it from your investors, I get it from you. Only I can tell you, I don't have 10 million. I have 4 children. So we had a handshake and a risk. And then we went out. And luckily, we found the first 100 people investing.
I love it. I love that you believed in yourself when others may not have. After doing the analytics, making, a sound choice, I am blown away and super exciting. Where can people go to learn a little bit more? What's the website?
It's open, by the way, in the US as well as in 32 other countries across the globe. We are in Asia. We are, of course, across Europe. We are in Israel. We are in the United Arab Emirates. We're going to open India next week. So it's www.moonfair.com, and you're on the page. It takes you a minute or so to sign up, and then you can see the opportunities that are live on the platform.
That's unbelievable. Okay, we have so much more we could talk about, but I'm going to ask just 2 closing questions. What does it mean to you, Steffen, to lead?
Wow, that's probably, a very, very, very difficult question. I think it all starts with, you have to ask yourself, why shall people follow you? Yeah, leading always requires people that believe in you. Why do they want to work for you? And I can tell you, it sounds now, it's not, of course, for most human beings it's different, but at least in the financial industry today, very, very few people work for the money. It's not what drives them. Of course, they need money for the living, but what it is, what people like, it's they want to work for something they believe it matters. Whether it matters, for the society, whether it's more for mankind or for themselves. So it's all about inspiration, inspiring people and give them and let them buy into what you believe in, a purpose. Look, we talked about Moonfair, and Molly, I can tell you after 12 years in private equity, and I was 47 or so when I founded the company, I didn't want to work for 80 hours to make more money. Yeah, money is nice and good, but that was not what was driving me. I wanted to do something that would in a way change the world, which is making something accessible also for fairness reason to people that didn't have access. And it was something that is meant to foster prosperity for a broader range of people. It's really democratizing, giving access something to, I would love to give it to everyone, but the regulatory authorities don't allow it. So this inspiration to change something, to innovate, to do something that no one else, think about it, what we are doing at Moonfair, no one else has done before. So every day is a challenge of innovation. Every day we have to be one step ahead of the curve. And this energy that comes with changing the world. And in the beginning, it was not clear that Moonfair would become a global company, but now we are. So on a global scale, changing the way the private equity industry is operating. Some people say this is writing financial history, and the innovation that comes along. This is really what drives my team. It's when it comes to leadership, it's about of course clear course in terms of mission, but also targets. I'm a big believer in empowerment. I don't believe in micromanagement. Give people freedom. Give them probably more freedom that they are already up to, because that's the way they grow. And then it's about coaching. It's about forgiving when it comes to mistakes. But coaching is key. You have to stand next to them. Take yourself back. Many CEOs and entrepreneurs, they think I come first. The biggest mistake you can make if you want to be a leader. Of course, it's not only shiny, sunny weather. It's you have to be consequent. You have to be reliable. I always say, I say what I do and I do what I say, so people can count on me. There is transparency and reliability. And it's also you have to take sometimes tough decisions. I talked about it. I had unfortunately to let half of my company, my first company back in the 90s, being laid off. But it's also about taking bold decisions, so some risk taking, and this is all then about leading by example, and then you will see that the company is following you. This is of course a challenge always to have these leadership principles on a broad scale in place when you're growing so fast. Yeah, we are growing more than 100% year over year. More than 60% of all our employees are not with the firm since a year. So to keep the spirit and these leadership principles alive across the globe in different time zones with more than now 20 different cultures and nationalities in the firm, that's one of the biggest challenges.
Extraordinary. I could not be more enthusiastic and inspired. Steffen, just give us one or two words. What was it like for you to share your journey with us today?
Look, it is, I really enjoyed it very much. It is always a learning thing. And it's a journey of surprises, really. I never, to be honest, Molly, talk so much about also my private life and where things are coming from. Always, meet great people, and I really enjoyed it to be with you. And I came up with a couple of ideas. I'm gonna ask people, my friends, at one of my next dinner events.
I love it. Steffen, it's such a treat. I cannot thank you enough for joining me, for making time, giving us an inside look into what's shaped you and into the world that you're in. I think you're doing an amazing job being part of the solution in the world. If I can be helpful in any little way, I'm here for you. I'm cheering for you. You take good care.
Molly, thanks so much. Very much appreciated.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
My thought for the week. When you see something others don't, you have opportunity. Do something about it. And that's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. Please be part of the solution and kindly share this show. Amplify Steffen's voice. Reflect on your top takeaways. And know I'm cheering for you to be who you are and say what needs to be said so that you and those around you have a shared reality, essential to make the best decisions, execute with speed, and achieve outstanding outcomes at work and in life. Homelessness is a problem that's more costly to ignore than solve. The U.S. spends $12 billion a year responding, but resources alone aren't enough. I'd like you to know there are cities and counties proving what does work. Partnering with Community Solutions, a nonprofit I'm on the board of, more than 80 communities around the country are succeeding in ending homelessness, beginning with chronic and veteran homelessness. They convene local leaders around data and are changing how they work and spend their resources, so homelessness becomes rare. More than half have already reduced the number of people experiencing chronic and veteran homelessness, with commitment to get to zero. What can you do? Visit www.built40.org and see whether your community is engaged. Contact your mayor and ask, do you know the number of people experiencing homelessness in real time? Do you know every homeless person by name? What are you doing to drive measurable reductions in homelessness? Please challenge the fiction that says homelessness is an intractable problem.
Thanks for listening to Say It Skillfully with host Molly Chang. Join us again for more ways to say it skillfully next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Channel. Follow Molly on LinkedIn and Twitter. Check out sayitskillfully.com and sign up so you don't miss her latest 90-second video. And please, be part of the solution. Kindly tell others about this program so they say it skillfully too.